At 78 years old, I was abandoned on a bench in Central Park with a plastic grocery bag, my worn-out purse, and the family cat in a cardboard carrier. My daughter kissed my cheek and said, "We'll be right back with coffee, Mom. Don't go anywhere." They never came back. 3 days later, a man in a dark suit slid a stack of papers across a mahogany table and said, "Mrs. Adler, you are now the majority owner of assets worth more than $80 million. Life can swing cruel and strange in the span of a single week. My name is Evelyn Adler, but most people call me Evie. I was born in Brooklyn in 1945, raised 2 children in a rent-controlled walk-up in Queens, buried my husband after 49 years of marriage, and survived breast cancer before I hit 70. I've never thought of myself as the main character of anything. I was the woman behind the checkout counter, the mother in the stands, the neighbor with the extra cup of sugar. I was the one who baked, who listened, who stacked chairs after everyone left. I didn't realize that made it easier for people to forget I was still there. It was one of those brittle March mornings when the city can't decide if it's winter or spring. The sky over Manhattan was a pale, indecisive blue, the kind that looks pretty until the wind slices straight through your coat. My daughter, Lena, had insisted we do something special that Saturday. "You haven't been into the city in months, Mom," she said, standing in the doorway of the small bedroom I'd been living in for the last year. "It's good for you to get out, and Daisy will love the park." Daisy, the cat, lifted her head from my lap as if she understood her name. She was 16, a gray and white long hair with one cloudy eye and the disposition of an old librarian. Mostly quiet, occasionally murderous. "Daisy is a house cat," I said, smoothing her fur. "Nothing about her screams outdoor adventure." Lena laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll keep her in the carrier, just fresh air," she said. "Come on, Mom. Central Park, like when we used to go see the boats with Dad." That caught me. My late husband, Arthur, loved that stupid sailboat pond. We used to bring the kids every spring, buy them hot dogs they weren't supposed to have, tell them stories about magic boats that could cross whole oceans. "All right," I said. "Central Park it is." I didn't notice that Lena's husband, Ben, refused to meet my eyes while he loaded Daisy into her carrier. I didn't notice how he kept checking his watch, how his leg bounced in the Uber all the way into Manhattan. I saw the traffic, the gray slush at the curb, the way my city had changed and stayed the same since I'd last walked under its skyscrapers. We were quiet as we cut across 72nd Street toward the park entrance. The cardboard carrier bumped gently against Ben's knee. Daisy protested with a soft, offended meow. "Almost there, old girl," I murmured, reaching down through the handle to scratch her head with my fingertips. Inside, the trees were still mostly bare, their branches like veins against the sky. Joggers in expensive leggings moved past us. Dogs in sweaters trotted at their heels. Somewhere to our left, a saxophone wept a slow, aching jazz line. We found an empty bench near the lake, one of those curved green ones that have seen a century of people sitting, waiting, forgetting. "Here," Lena said, helping me sit. "Let me put Daisy next to you." She set the cat carrier on the bench. Daisy's one good eye glared out through the holes. "Need anything, Mom?" she asked. "No, sweetheart," I said, pulling my coat tighter. "This is lovely. I can watch the ducks." Ben shifted his weight from foot to foot. "We'll go grab coffee and something to eat," he said. "You like those cinnamon rolls from that place on Columbus, right?" "I don't need—" "Please," Lena cut in. "You never let us do anything for you. Just sit, rest, enjoy the view." Something in her voice made me close my mouth. Guilt? Frustration? I couldn't tell. "All right," I said again. "Coffee sounds nice." Lena leaned down, kissed my cheek, smelled faintly of expensive shampoo and exhaustion. "Back in a few," she murmured. Ben just nodded, his jaw hard, his eyes already drifting toward the path out of the park. They walked away together, their silhouettes shrinking against the winding paths and bare trees. I watched them go until they turned a corner and were swallowed by the park. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Half an hour. The bench grew colder under me. The wind picked up, nudging at the edges of my scarf, slipping icy fingers down the collar of my coat. Daisy began to complain again, a low, scratchy sound from the carrier. "I know," I whispered, leaning down. "They're just in line. Coffee in this city takes forever. Remember when—" I trailed off. "Remember when what? When you could afford to sit in a cafe without worrying about the cost? When Arthur would pull you in by the window so you could people watch and make up stories about strangers? When Lena was small enough to carry on your hip? My phone, an old flip model that Lena constantly threatened to replace, sat silent in my purse. I dug it out, flipped it open with fingers gone clumsy from the cold, squinted at the tiny screen. No calls, no texts. I checked the time. 11:22 a.m. We'd sat down just before 11. "Maybe the line is long," I murmured, mostly to shut up the growing tightness in my chest. Another 15 minutes. I dialed Lena's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. "Hey, it's Lena. Leave a message." "Hi, dear. It's Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just checking you're all right. It's gotten a bit chilly. I'll be right here with Daisy. Don't rush." I snapped the phone shut. Daisy meowed again, more insistent this time, pawing at the cardboard from the inside. "Easy, girl," I said. "We're fine." An hour passed. The saxophone player packed up and left. The joggers changed to mothers with strollers, to tourists with cameras, to teenagers cutting across the grass where they weren't supposed to. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I tried Ben. His went straight to voicemail as well. Something heavy, like a stone, dropped into the pit of my stomach. I told myself a simple story at first. Long lines, bad cell service, an urgent call. The stories got harder to write as the minutes sharpened into hours. Around 1 o'clock, my fingers ached from the cold. I wiggled them inside my gloves, rubbing my palms together. I reached for the handle of the cat carrier to tuck Daisy closer to my side. That's when I saw it. On the side of the box, in Ben's messy scrawl. Food inside. I lifted the lid. Next to Daisy's small blanket, there was a zip-top bag of dry cat food and 2 tins with pull tabs. They'd thought of everything for the cat. "Nonsense," I whispered, though no one had said anything. "It's just so we don't have to buy it later." My heart knew I was lying. At 2 o'clock, a park ranger approached. A young woman, maybe 30, with a green jacket and cheeks flushed from the wind. "Ma'am," she asked gently, "are you all right? You've been sitting here a while." "I'm fine," I said automatically. The phrase comes fast when you're old. Practice. "My daughter went to get coffee. She'll be right back." "How long ago was that?" she asked. I opened my mouth, closed it. I'm not sure," I admitted. "A while. Time slips, you know." She gave me a searching look, then glanced at the carrier. "Is that your cat?" she asked. I thought of Daisy's first night with us. Lena at 7 holding the tiny kitten like treasure. I thought of all the times I'd fed the cat when everyone else forgot. Of how she'd curled against my ribs when chemotherapy made my bones feel hollow. "She is now," I said. The ranger's radio crackled. She stepped aside, answered, told them she'd check in. "Do you have a phone number for your daughter?" she asked. I gave it to her. She dialed, waited, shook her head, straight to voicemail. I watched her face as she listened, her eyes narrowing. "Would you like to come warm up in the station?" she offered. "We have coffee, restrooms. You can wait there, and if we get a hold of your daughter, that's where we'll tell her to meet you." Everything in me rebelled at the word station. It sounded too much like police, like nursing home, like all the places old people go and don't come back from. "I'll be fine here," I said, forcing a smile. "Really?" "Ma'am," she said, and there was no softness in it now, only firmness. "It's below 40 degrees. You've been sitting on a metal bench for at least 3 hours. You have no hat, no scarf over your ears, and that cat looks like she's 2 meows away from a nervous breakdown. Please, let us help." Pride is a stupid thing. It makes you argue with paramedics and refuse wheelchairs when your legs are on fire from arthritis. It makes you wave off help from people young enough to be your children because you don't want to admit you can't do what you used to. But there's another voice that gets louder with age, if you let it. The one that says, "You've been strong long enough. Let someone carry the next bag." I took a breath that rattled a little in my chest. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll come." She smiled, just a small relieved thing. "I'm Dana," she said, offering her gloved hand to help me up. "We're going to get you warm, Miss Adler," I said. "Evelyn Adler." As I stood, my phone buzzed in my purse. A text from an unknown number. I squinted at the tiny screen. "We're sorry, Mom. We can't do this anymore. You'll be better off with people who can take care of you. Please don't call. L and B." Underneath, a second message. "We left Daisy with you so you won't be alone." Something hot and bitter rose in my throat. For a moment, the world narrowed to a pinprick. The trees, the lake, Dana's face, all went blurry. "Miss Adler?" she asked. "Are you okay?" I swallowed hard, forced my voice to stay even. "No," I said. "But I will be." I picked up Daisy's carrier myself, the cardboard cutting into my old fingers. If my daughter thought leaving me with a half-blind cat made her abandonment more merciful, she was wrong. It just meant she'd forgotten one very important thing about me. I have never been alone with a problem in my entire life without finding a way to solve it. And I wasn't about to start at 78. The park ranger station smelled like wet wool, burnt coffee, and cheap soap. Dana settled me at a small table near a drafty window, set a paper cup of something hot in front of me, then bent down to scratch Daisy through the holes in her carrier. "Hey, gorgeous," she murmured. "You've had a day, huh?" Daisy, traitorous animal that she was, immediately began to purr. "I've logged a report," Dana said, straightening. "We called the number you gave us 3 more times. Voicemail every time. I'm obligated to ask, is there any chance they left you here on purpose, Miss Adler?" The question hung between us like smoke. I could have lied. Told her no, of course not. My children loved me. This was all a misunderstanding. That's what the mother in me wanted to say, the one who'd bandaged scraped knees and sat up worrying on prom nights. But then I remembered the text. "Please don't call." The bags of cat food carefully packed. Ben's clenched jaw. Lena's eyes that morning, too bright, too full of something like relief. My throat felt tight as I answered. "Yes," I said. "I think there is a chance." Dana's face hardened, just a fraction. "In that case," she said, "we have to notify Adult Protective Services, and probably the NYPD. Abandoning an elder is, well, it's not just rude. It can be a crime." "A crime," I repeated, tasting the word. It felt too big for Lena. For my little girl who used to fall asleep with her head in my lap on the subway. "I'm not saying they'll kick down her door," Dana added quickly. But there needs to be a record. For your safety. Safety. A word that had always meant my job. Don't run with scissors. Look both ways. Call me when you get there. Now it was a thing other people were trying to wrap around me like a borrowed coat. I nodded. Do what you have to do, I said. She squeezed my shoulder once, then went to make calls. The hours blurred. An APS caseworker named Marisol arrived, kind eyes behind large glasses, a tablet in her hand. She asked me questions. Full name, date of birth, social security number, health conditions, medications, next of kin. I answered on autopilot, my voice detached, as if reciting someone else's life. Do you have any other children? She asked. My son, Daniel, I said. He died in Iraq in 2004. I'm sorry, she murmured. Me too, I said. They asked if I had any other family in the city. I mentioned a distant cousin in Staten Island I hadn't seen in 15 years, a church friend who'd moved to Florida. It became obvious quickly that there was no easy, go stay with so-and-so option. We can place you in an emergency shelter tonight, Marisol said. It's not fancy, but it's warm, and there are staff on site. Tomorrow we can look at more stable options. Maybe a subsidized senior apartment. Maybe an assisted living facility if that's appropriate. A shelter. My pride reared up again, teeth bared. I'm not homeless, I protested. I lived with my daughter. Do you have keys to her apartment? She asked, gently, not unkind. I reached into my purse, felt around, knowing what my fingers would find. They closed around my small key ring, my bedroom key, my mailbox key, the extra front door key Lena had made for me when I moved in. I pulled it out, held it up. She can change the locks, I heard myself say. Marisol's silence said enough. Right now, she said. What matters is that you're safe, warm, and have access to your medications. Tomorrow we can talk about everything else. One day at a time, okay? One day at a time. That was how they told me to take chemo. Motherhood. Grief. I looked down at Daisy's carrier. Her one clear eye blinked back at me. Daisy and I are a package deal, I said. Where I go, she goes. Marisol's lips twitched. I think we can manage that, she said. The shelter was on the Upper West Side, tucked between a laundromat and a shuttered bookstore. Its front entrance marked only by a small brass plaque. Inside, it was not terrible. Bright enough, clean enough. Cots lined the walls, partitioned with thin curtains. The air hummed with the sound of people trying not to disturb one another. Muffled coughs, whispered conversations. The low murmur of a TV somewhere. A volunteer helped me settle into a cot near the back. Someone had found an old laundry basket and lined it with towels for Daisy. She stepped out of her carrier, sniffed once, and curled up as if she'd personally approved the arrangements. Your file says you're from Queens? The volunteer, a young man with a nose ring and a kind voice, asked. Was, I corrected. Now I suppose I'm from nowhere. That's not how this works, he said. Everyone's from somewhere, Miss Adler. Even if somewhere just means the inside of my own stubborn skull. I surprised myself by laughing. It came out rusty, but real. What's your name? I asked. Dev, he said. Short for Devonte. I'm on night shift, so if you need anything, just wave a hand. Preferably the one without the cat attached. He winked. I liked him immediately. The first night I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lena's back as she walked away. The way her ponytail swung. The way Ben's hand hovered at her elbow, as if he were guiding her through a crowded bar, not out of her mother's life. Guilt came first. Maybe I had been a burden. Maybe my forgetfulness, my slow shuffling steps, My occasional crankiness had worn her down. Then anger, hot and sharp. I had raised 2 children while working full-time at a grocery store, my feet throbbing in cheap shoes. I'd taken in my own mother when dementia stole her recognition. I'd bathed her, changed her, soothed her when she called me by her dead sister's name and cried for long-gone people. Never once did I think of leaving her on a park bench like a broken chair. By dawn, the anger had cooled into something harder. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a clarity I hadn't had before. I was not going to spend whatever time I had left begging for scraps of my daughter's conscience. When the first weak light seeped in through the high windows, Dev appeared with 2 styrofoam cups. "Breakfast of champions," he said. "Terrible coffee and slightly less terrible oatmeal." "Sold," I said. He watched me pick at the lumpy oatmeal. "So," he said, "we get all kinds through here. Some for a night, some longer. If you don't mind me asking, what's your story?" The old instinct kicked in. Deflect, minimize, don't cause trouble. "Got left in the park," I said simply. "State picked me up. Here I am." "By your family?" he asked. "Yes." "That's messed up," he said. "Sorry, there's probably a nicer way to say that." "No," I said. "There isn't, actually." He hesitated. "Can I—" He held up his phone. "I run a little community account. Nothing huge, just stories from people who come through. Anonymous, unless they want names. You don't have to. It's just, people don't understand how often this happens." Abandonment. The word. "What would you post?" I asked. "Something like, 'Tonight, we met a 78-year-old grandmother who was left on a park bench with the family cat. Her kids said they can't do this anymore. We're doing what we can. Check on your elders. They're not burdens.'" The simplicity of it made my chest ache. "You don't use my full name," I said. "Of course not. And no picture of my face. Deal." I thought of Jasmine's TikTok, of the way stories travel now, skipping from screen to screen like stones across water. "All right," I said. "Let them know I was a cashier at Morton's Grocery for 32 years. Let them know I can still bag a week's worth of food faster than any of those kids at Whole Foods. Let them know I'm not done yet." He grinned. "You got it," he said. He tapped away, then showed me the draft. I nodded. By lunch, the post had a few hundred likes. By dinner, a few thousand. Comments poured in, tiny windows of empathy from strangers. This makes me want to call my mom right now. My grandma raised me. I would never. "If this woman needs a place to stay, I'll find a couch." Dev shook his head, scrolling. "People talk big," he said. "But sometimes talking is the first step to doing. You never know." On the second day, a local reporter called the shelter. Then another. "Human interest," they said. "A story that cuts through the noise." Marisol from APS asked if I wanted to speak to them. "Only if it helps someone," I said. Not Lena. Not for her to be dragged online. But if some other daughter sees it and thinks twice before dropping her dad on a park bench, then yes." So I told my story. Not with tears, not with dramatics. Just the plain, unvarnished truth. I worked, I raised, I cared. And when I slowed down, the people I'd poured myself into decided I was too heavy to carry. The New York Post ran a piece. "Left like trash. 78-year-old woman abandoned in Central Park with family cat." The headline made me wince, but the article was surprisingly humane. They kept my last name out of it, per my request. They blurred Daisy's face in the photo, which made me laugh out loud. "Witness protection for felines," I joked to Dev. Online, the story went further. #sprouted. Not a burden. Check on your elders. We're Olivi. It was surreal, knowing thousands of people were angry on my behalf. Their outrage like a wave I could see on a screen, but not feel in my bones. On the third morning, while I was showing a woman at the next cot how to knit a simple scarf, it keeps your hands busy and your worries from chewing on your brain. Marisol appeared at the door of the shelter. She looked different, more alert, almost excited. "Miss Adler," she said, "there's someone here to see you." Fear spiked in my chest. "If it's my daughter, it's not your daughter," she said. "It's a lawyer." "Well," I said dryly, "that's almost worse." Dev laughed. Marisol did not. "I really think you'll want to talk to this one," she said. I followed her to the tiny office off the main room. Behind the desk sat a man in an impeccable navy suit, salt and pepper hair, and the kind of tie that says, "I bill by the hour and I'm worth it." He stood when I entered, buttoning his jacket automatically. "Mrs. Adler," he said, "my name is Thomas Kaplan. I represent Adler and Finch Technologies." I blinked. "Adler and who?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "Perhaps you knew it, many years ago. As Finch Microsystems," he said. "A small, struggling company your late husband once invested in." The name dropped into my memory like a stone into a deep well. Finch Micro. The startup Arthur had come home talking about in 1982, eyes bright. "They make these little chips, Evie," he'd said, spreading glossy papers over our Formica kitchen table. "Guy at the union says they could change everything. Computers in every house, can you imagine?" I'd rolled my eyes, but I'd signed the check. A small amount, even then. "Grocery money," my mother called it. We'd forgotten about it as the years rolled on. Kids, bills, school supplies, repairs. The future arrived anyway, with computers and the internet and eventually little screens in everyone's pockets. "You're telling me," I began slowly, that company still exists?" "Oh, it exists," Kaplan said. "It pivoted, rebranded, merged. Today, Adler and Finch Technologies is one of the largest cloud infrastructure providers in the world. And according to our records, your husband's shares, or rather, the joint and shares you purchased, were never sold." My heart started to pound in my ears. "I don't understand," I said. "We never got statements, dividends, nothing." He nodded. "Back then, the paperwork was not what it should have been," he admitted. "But we've been auditing legacy records in preparation for a major acquisition. Your name surfaced on a list of lost shareholders. We sent letters to your last known address in Queens. They were returned. Then I saw your story in the Post." He slid a folder toward me. On top was a photocopy of an ancient stock purchase agreement. My young looping signature beside Arthur's careful print. "Mrs. Evelyn Adler," it read. "Joint tenant with right of survivorship." "You are, as of this morning," Kaplan said, "the registered owner of approximately 0.8% of Adler and Finch Technologies." 0.8? I repeated, trying to remember ninth grade math. "In market terms," he said, "roughly $83 million. The room tilted. Dev, who had slipped in behind me without me noticing, let out a low whistle. "Holy," he began. "Devonte," Marisol warned. "Sorry," he muttered. "Holy heck." I gripped the back of the chair. "This is a mistake," I said. "It has to be a mistake." "I've been sleeping in a cot next to a radiator that sounds like it's dying. You don't go from that to $80 million. Stranger things have happened in this city," Kaplan said. "But I assure you, Mrs. Adler, This is no mistake. We'd like to arrange a secure transfer of these assets into an account of your choosing. There will, of course, be tax implications, estate planning considerations." He trailed off, perhaps realizing that phrases like tax implications hit differently when addressed to a woman wearing the same sweater 3 days in a row. "I understand this is a lot," he added. "We can go as slowly as you need." I stared at the papers, at my own name in faded ink. I thought of Lena's text. "You'll be better off with people who can take care of you." I thought of the word she hadn't used, but meant burden. "Mr. Kaplan," I said quietly, "would you mind stepping outside for a moment? I need to talk to Marisol and Dev." He dipped his head. "Of course," he said. "Take your time." When he left, shutting the door behind him, I turned to the other two. "Is this real?" I asked. "Tell me straight. I'm not losing it. This isn't some kind of elaborate prank?" "It's real," Marisol said, her voice steady. "We can cross-check with the state records, but it lines up. Your husband made an investment. Nobody followed up properly. The company exploded. The shares sat there, growing like some kind of forgotten seed." "An $80 million seed," Dev said, wide-eyed. I sank into the chair. "I never wanted to be rich," I said. "I just didn't want to be disposable." "You're not," Marisol said firmly, "with or without this money." I looked at her, at Dev, at the thin wall that separated this tiny office from the rows of cots. "What happens now?" I asked. "Practically?" "Practically?" she said. "You get a good elder law attorney. Maybe Ms. Rosen can recommend one. You set up protections so nobody can come in and take advantage of you. You move somewhere safe, comfortable, where no one leaves you on a bench because they're tired." "And my daughter?" I asked. The question tasted like rust. Marisol hesitated. "That's up to you," she said. "Legally, we still have an abandonment case open. If you choose to pursue charges, we can. If you want to let it go, we can close it. But money or no money, what she did was wrong." Wrong. A small word, but solid. "I'm not sure what I want," I admitted. "Except, I know one thing." "What's that?" Dev asked. "This fortune?" I said, gesturing vaguely to the papers. "It came from a time when your father works with his hands, and your mother waits tables and some scrappy little company bets on itself. It did not come from my daughter, or her husband, or their tolerance." I straightened up, feeling a spine I thought had curved with age suddenly very, very straight. "I'm not going to spend a single dollar of it making their lives easier," I said. "Not one." Dev grinned. "I like rich, you," he said. "She's kind of terrifying." Marisol chuckled. "Terrifying in the best way," she agreed. I reached down and picked up Daisy, who'd wandered in and was rubbing her head against my calf. She curled in my lap, purring. "You hear that, Daisy?" I murmured into her fur. "We went from abandoned strays to potential philanthropists. And for the first time since that cold bench in Central Park, I felt something warming me from the inside that had nothing to do with cheap coffee or thin blankets. Power. Not the kind that buys private jets. The kind that lets you decide, finally, how your story ends. They moved me out of the shelter within 48 hours. Not because I suddenly had money, but because Marisol pushed every button she had. The shelter is for people with no options," she told the director. "Mrs. Adler has options now. We just need a safe place for her to land while we line them up." Safe landed me in a small, impeccably clean room in an assisted living facility on the Upper East Side. Not one of the fancy ones with marble lobbies and fountains that look like hotel atriums, but a solid, well-run place where the nurses called residents by their names and the hallways didn't smell like despair. They allowed cats. Daisy sniffed every inch of the room, claimed the sunny patch on the windowsill, and promptly fell asleep as if this had all been her idea. Temporary, I told her. Don't get attached. Thomas Kaplan came by the next day with a colleague from his firm, a younger woman named Priya, who specialized in elder financial abuse and asset protection. I'm not sure I like knowing that's a specialty, I remarked. Neither do I, Mrs. Adler, she said. But I'm glad it's mine. We spent hours going over documents. So, Priya summarized finally, tapping a stack of papers. We recommend setting up a revocable living trust. You'll be the primary trustee as long as you're competent. When, and only when, you can't make decisions, a successor trustee steps in. We can build in oversight so no one person has total control. We can also restrict access so that any distributions to family are at your discretion, not theirs. In English? I asked. In English, she said, smiling. You stay in charge, and no one can guilt, threaten, or abandon you into signing anything you don't want to sign. My mind flashed unbidden to Lena's face the day we closed on her house in Queens. She'd cried when the keys dropped into her palm. We couldn't have done this without you, Mom, she'd said. You're our angel investor. Back then, I'd laughed. Now the phrase tasted bitter. I want to leave something to my grandson, I said suddenly. Priya looked up. You didn't mention a grandchild. He's 9, I said. Ethan, sweet boy, loves dinosaurs and asks too many questions. None of this mess is his fault. She nodded. We can set up a separate trust in his name, she said. Release it when he's older. Tie it to conditions that have nothing to do with his parents' behavior. Do it, I said. And your daughter? She asked. I paused. Nothing, I said. Then after a moment, no, that's not true. I want to leave her something so small and specific that she's forced to look at it every time she thinks about me. What did you have in mind? Priya asked carefully. An empty bench, I said. In Central Park. She frowned, not understanding. Not literally, I clarified. There's a bench I sat on for 3 hours while she didn't come back. I don't know, a plaque, a donation in someone else's name. Something that says, you turned this place into a symbol of abandonment. I turned it into a symbol of survival. Priya considered. You could endow a fund for elder outreach in the park, she suggested. Rangers already check on kids and lost tourists. We could create a program where they're trained to spot at-risk seniors. Volunteers, hotlines, benches near shelters. My chest tightened. Yes, I said. Do that. Call it the Not a Burden Initiative. Dev would love that. We can put her name nowhere near it, Priya added. Or we can put yours front and center. Mine, I said. And Arthur's. He'd like knowing his silly microchips ended up paying for something like that. As the legal machine whirred, life in the facility settled into a strange rhythm. I went to physical therapy twice a week, relearning how to trust my knees on the stairs. I played bingo badly and Scrabble well. I taught a crocheting circle, which doubled as a gossip ring. 70-year-olds can dissect staff romances with the best of them. People treated me differently when the story about the stock hit the news. The Post did a follow-up. From park bench to fortune, abandoned grandma inherits millions in tech stock. The headline made me sound like a lottery ticket. The internet ate it up. Go off, Evie, one comment read. Grandma secured the bag, said another. Can she adopt me? Dozens of people joked. Here's the thing they never tell you in fairy tales. Money doesn't actually solve the story. It just gives you more choices about how to write the next chapter. It didn't unabandon me. Didn't erase the hollow in my chest where my daughter used to sit. But it did pay for better health care than Medicaid would have. It did let me send checks, anonymously, to Dev's community fund and Jasmine's nursing school application fee. It did let me choose a new apartment in a senior community in Queens, with a view of the park where Arthur used to take the kids. Not because it was the only place that would have me, but because I liked it. And it gave me one delicious, petty option I hadn't expected to enjoy so much. I didn't have to call Lena. She called me. The first time it was a week after the second article went up. My ancient flip phone, which I stubbornly kept despite everyone's protests, buzzed on the bedside table. I checked the caller ID. Her name lit up the screen like a ghost. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, her recorded message said, her voice brittle. I saw the news. I don't know what to say. Please call me back, please. I didn't. The second time she left a longer message. Crying, this time. Mom, I made a mistake, she said. We made a mistake. Ben said we couldn't afford everything. He said you'd be happier. I don't know. It doesn't matter what he said. It was wrong. I was wrong. Please let me explain. Explain. As if there were an explanation that magically turned. We left you on a bench with the cat, into we love you unconditionally. I cried when I heard that one. Not because I missed her, I did. Or because I forgave her. I hadn't. Not fully. I cried because I heard in her voice an echo of my own, years ago, trying to explain to my mother why I hadn't visited as often as I should have. I was tired, Ma, I'd said. The kids, work, everything. It's hard. It's supposed to be, my mother had replied. That's what family is, hard and worth it. I hadn't left her on a bench. That mattered. On the third call, Lena's tone shifted. Less sorrow, more calculation. I know you're mad, she said. I deserve that. But we're still your family. Ethan keeps asking where you are. He misses you. And I mean, with everything you have now, you could have such a nice place. Near us. We could help. We could... She trailed off, as if the words, take care of you, were stuck in her throat. The old Evie, the one who would have bent herself in half to keep the peace, might have called back. Might have said, it's okay, sweetheart. We'll figure it out. I know you were under stress. The new Evie, born on a freezing bench and raised in a shelter and baptized in legalese, let the message sit. When I finally returned her call, it was not because of the news stories, or the money, or the fact that I could now afford to hire and fire family-like staff. It was because of a picture Dev had shown me. He'd found Lena's Instagram. In between the avocado toast and the yoga poses, there was a photo of Ethan at the park, holding an ice cream, grinning at the camera. Caption, my whole world. I remembered being his age, thinking my mother's lap was the safest place on earth. I remembered thinking she would never not come back. I dialed. She picked up on the first ring. Mom, she breathed. I'll meet you, I said, cutting past any pleasantries. But not at your house, and not alone. Bring Ethan, Central Park, by the lake. Saturday, 11 a.m. She made a small wounded sound. Central Park? She echoed, as if the name hurt. Yes, I said. You left me there. I'm going to decide if I pick us up from there, or walk away properly this time. Silence. We'll be there, she whispered. Saturday was brisk but sunny. I wore my best coat, The one Arthur had bought me for our 40th anniversary, buttoned up to the neck. Daisy remained at home. This meeting didn't need the cat as a prop. I arrived 10 minutes early. Sat on the same green bench, the wood slats pressing grooves into my coat. People passed, tourists, dog walkers, a man selling pretzels from a cart. At 11:03, I saw them. Lena, in a navy peacoat, her hair pulled back tight. Ethan, in a puffy red jacket, his cheeks flushed from the cold. Ben walked a few paces behind, his hands in his pockets, his eyes on the ground. Ethan spotted me first. "Grandma!" he shouted, taking off at a sprint. He barreled into me, nearly knocking me off the bench. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. "You got taller," I said, holding him at arm's length. "You got famous," he replied. "My teacher showed us your story in class. She cried." "Did she now?" I said, startled. "Yeah," he said. "She said, we have to take care of our elders." I told everyone. "That's my grandma. She used to sneak me cookies when my mom said no." Lena reached us then, slightly out of breath. "Hi, Mom," she said. "Hello, Lena," I replied. We regarded each other for a long moment. Time had not been kind to either of us in the last 2 weeks. There were new lines around her mouth. My hair seemed whiter somehow. "I'm sorry," she burst out. "Mom, I'm so sorry. There's no excuse. I was overwhelmed and Ben was in my ear, and you were slipping, and I was scared, and I chose the worst possible way to deal with it." Ben flinched but didn't protest. "I know you hate me," she continued, tears spilling. "I would hate me, but please don't hate Ethan. Don't cut him out because I'm a coward." I looked at my grandson. His eyes were wide, scared, darting between us. "I don't hate you," I said. "I'm disappointed, devastated, angry. Those are all different from hate." "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said. "No," I agreed. "You don't. Forgiveness isn't something anyone deserves. It's something that's given. Or not." She swayed a little, as if I'd struck her. "So, is that it?" she whispered. "You're done with me?" Ethan's lip trembled. "Grandma?" he said quietly. I took his hand. "I'm not done being your grandmother," I told him. "No matter what happens between me and your mother, that's a promise." He squeezed my hand so hard my fingers ached. "As for you," I said, turning back to Lena, "here's how this is going to work. I am safe. I am cared for. I have more money than any of us knows what to do with. I'm using it to build something in this city that makes sure what you did doesn't happen to someone else unnoticed." She nodded, eyes downcast. "You will not receive a cent of that while I'm alive," I continued. "I've already set up the paperwork. When I'm gone, you'll receive something small. A token. Enough to remind you that I was once generous, and you chose convenience over courage." She swallowed hard. "I understand," she said. "I don't deserve anything." "You do deserve this," I said. "If you want a relationship with me, you will work for it the way you work for your clients, your yoga, your whatever it is you post online. You will call. You will visit. Not because of what I can give you, but despite what I cannot ever give you again. The mother who trusted you completely." Tears ran down her face in silent streams. "I will," she said. "I swear. I'll go to therapy. I'll volunteer for your initiative. I'll do whatever it takes." "We'll see," I said. "I don't need your penance. I need your consistency." Ben finally spoke. "Mrs. Adler," he said, voice strained. I'm sorry too." I looked at him. "You're a grown man, Ben," I said. "You made your choices. They are between you and whatever keeps you up at night." My focus now is on myself, and on this child. I pulled Ethan closer. "Can I come visit you?" he asked. "At your place?" "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how quickly the answer came. "You can come every week if you want. We'll make up stories about all the people who walk past the window." "Like Dad used to," he said softly. "Like Dad used to," I agreed. In the weeks that followed, true to her word, for the first time in a long time, Lena called. She visited, sometimes alone, sometimes with Ethan. We didn't talk about the will. We talked about books, about recipes, about how her back hurt now that she was the one carrying groceries up 4 flights of stairs. Trust is a long road with no shortcuts. We had just put one cautious foot on it. I poured my time and attention instead into the Not a Burden initiative. With Priya's help, we endowed a fund in partnership with the City Parks Department and several nonprofits. We trained rangers to spot signs of elder neglect. We set up a hotline. We staffed benches near popular park entrances with volunteers, retirees, students, people who just cared, who offered coffee, conversation, and a watchful eye. We put up small plaques on certain benches, not many, just enough to make a point. On the bench where Lena left me, the one by the lake, there appeared a small brass square. It read, "In honor of all who were told they were a burden, you are not. EA." One afternoon, months later, I sat on that bench again. Daisy's carrier rested at my feet. She'd become something of a mascot for the initiative, her one cloudy eye staring down anyone who dared suggest cats, or grandmothers, were disposable. A young couple walked by, arguing quietly about whose turn it was to visit a cranky parent. The woman read the plaque, stopped. She nudged her partner, pointed. They both went quiet. Then slowly they turned around and headed back the way they'd come, toward the cross street where the buses ran, toward whatever obligation they'd been trying to avoid. I smiled. Money hadn't bought that moment, but it had paid for the plaque, for the ranger training, for the infrastructure that made the choice visible. I wasn't an angel. I wasn't a saint. I was an old woman with arthritis and an $80 million accident in her bank account. But I was not a burden. I had never been. And if it took being left on a park bench with the family cat for the whole world, including my own daughter, to see that, well, Hollywood could keep its Oscars. I had something better. A front row seat to the small, steady ways people chose, every day, not to abandon each other. And that, in the end, felt like the richest thing of all.